Schools in America have been no stranger to violence. Despite these places being a place of learning, shooters have turned many of the nation's learning institutions into deadly crime scenes. Today, we take a look at these shootings that garnered particular attention or had a lasting cultural impact. University of Texas Tower Shooting. After stabbing his mother and his wife to death the night before, Charles Whitman, a former Marine, took rifles and other weapons to the observation deck atop the main building tower at the University of Texas at Austin, then opened fire indiscriminately on people on the surrounding campus and streets. Over the next 96 minutes, he shot and killed 14 more people, including an unborn baby, and injured 31 others. One final victim died in 2001 from the lingering effects of his wounds.
There must have been a hit that last time. We hear people outside of our building in an area where we can't now look safely saying, "Let's help that boy. Does he need help? Someone must be down."
Talked with him after he got back.
One of those who is out of breath now after running out onto the mall rescuing those who've been shot is Brian Ellison of Austin, who's been in Vietnam and has been back for 2 years. Brian, how many have you gone out to rescue?
Today, too.
What did you have to do?
Run hard and keep low.
After being called back to active service because of poor academic performance, Whitman returned to the Marine Corps in 1963. By mid-decade, he was honorably discharged. Whitman went back to the University of Texas at Austin in the spring of 1965. In the months prior to the attack, Whitman had sought professional help for, quote, overwhelming violent impulses, unquote, including fantasies about shooting people from the tower. Whitman stated that he wanted his brain examined after his death to check for signs of physical cause of mental illness. His request was granted in the form of a police autopsy, which showed that he had a hypothalamic tumor in his brain. But medical experts disagreed over whether it had any influence on Whitman's behavior. Rosemar College of Beauty Massacre. 18-year-old Bob Smith took 7 people hostage at Rosemar College of Beauty and ordered them to lie down in a circle. He shot each in the head. 4 women and a 3-year-old girl died. Another woman and a baby were injured but survived. Smith was sentenced to death in Arizona's gas chamber, but his sentence was commuted to life when the U.S. Supreme Court ruled the death penalty unconstitutional in 1972. His heroes included Lee Harvey Oswald, John Wilkes Booth, Jesse James, and Hitler. 2 influential events occurred in 1966, the mass murder by Richard Speck and the massacre by Charles Whitman. These incidents apparently sparked Smith to want to carry out his own attack and become just as infamous as Speck and Whitman. He said, quote, "I wanted to get known. Just wanted to get myself a name," unquote. On that day, Smith rounded up a group of women and their children, made them lie down, and began shooting them. When one of the wounded women was squirming, he stabbed her with a knife. During the massacre, Smith was laughing. He later reported having felt exhilarated while killing. When asked about shooting a baby, he replied, quote, "Well, it was going to grow up and become an adult, unquote. When the police arrived, he casually announced, quote, I shot some people. They're back there, unquote. He later stated that he had been disappointed that there hadn't been more people to kill. When asked what he would have done if his mother and sister had been there, he said, quote, I would have shot them too, unquote. He reportedly had once planned to kill his father with a knife, waiting for him to come home so he could murder him. The motivation for this remains unknown. Regarding the motivation for the massacre, Smith stated, quote, I wanted to kill about 40 people so I could make a name for myself. I wanted people to know who I was, unquote. Cokeville Elementary School hostage crisis. 43-year-old former town marshal David Young and his 47-year-old wife, Doris Young, took 136 children and 18 adults hostage at Cokeville Elementary School. The Cokeville Elementary School hostage crisis occurred on Friday, May 16, 1986, in Cokeville, Wyoming, when former town marshal David Young and his wife Doris Young took 136 children and 18 adults hostage at Cokeville Elementary School. In the classroom, David Young held a gasoline bomb with the triggering mechanism attached to a shoelace tied around his wrist. He demanded a ransom of $2 million per hostage and an audience with President Reagan. David Young had also sent a copy of the manifesto to President Ronald Reagan. About 2.5 hours into the standoff, David Young transferred the triggering mechanism of the bomb to Doris's wrist and went to a small bathroom that connected the first and the second grade rooms. While he was gone, Doris Young jerked her hand on the triggering mechanism and the bomb exploded, filling the room with black smoke and severely injuring Doris. Immediately following the detonation, the teachers started to shove children through 2 open windows onto the grass outside the school, causing chaos as panicked parents tried to break through police lines. Following the explosion, the police report states that David Young opened the door from the connecting bathroom, shot and killed his wife, shot and wounded John Miller, a teacher who was trying to flee, and then closed the door to the small bathroom and killed himself. 76 of the hostages suffered injuries, mostly flash burns and other injuries from the exploding bomb. Several children reported seeing angels in the classroom that day, including many children who claimed to have seen a, quote, beautiful lady, unquote. Stockton schoolyard shooting. 24-year-old Patrick Edward Purdy fatally shot 5 children and wounded 32 others before taking his own life. The victims were children of refugees from Southeast Asia.
Witnesses say a lone gunman walked onto the campus at Stockton's Cleveland Elementary School and opened fire with a machine gun. At the time, 400 to 500 first, second, and third graders were playing during their lunch period.
Purdy had a history of violence, alcoholism, and drug addiction, and criminality. Purdy, dressed in battle gear and wearing a flak jacket, parked his car near the school, then set it on fire before entering the school grounds through a gap in a fence. He had 2 handguns and the AK-47. Purdy then opened fire with a semi-automatic rifle at children playing outside and others inside an elementary school. 5 children between 6 and 9 years old, all of them Refugees from Southeast Asia were killed, and more than 30 people were wounded, about half of them critically, before he shot himself to death. Laurie Mackey, who taught deaf children at the Cleveland Elementary School, said, quote, "He was not talking, he was not yelling, he was very straight-faced," unquote. Purdy's criminal record was mostly in the Los Angeles area and included narcotics and weapons violations and soliciting for sex, Chief Neely said. He also described Purdy as a loner and an alcoholic.
Students who were in classrooms say they didn't realize what was happening until it was too late.
We thought it was like a game or something, and me and my friend Nicole, we were laughing because we didn't know what happened, and then we seen this gang class fell down, and when the little girl got up, the leg was almost falling off.
I just heard the gunshots, and then I looked, then I saw my friend laying down the ground. Then I told the teacher, and then he grabbed him. Then he brought him in the classroom.
Police say Purdy had trouble keeping jobs, working for a couple months last year at this machine shop, working for just 1 month at another machine shop. His former foreman says he just walked out one day.
But he did a lot of cleanup, and he wasn't satisfied with the work that he was doing.
So in this shop, he kind of had, what, the equivalent of the grunt work?
Yeah.
And he didn't like it?
No, he didn't like it. Whenever he was told to do something, he had a sour look on his face.
Yeah, he talked pretty much about when he was young, growing up and stuff, that he didn't have too much of a family life, and he kind of lived all over the nation, lived in Hawaii, lived everywhere, and he never had it really easy. That's what
Did he complain about his parents?
He said his mom was an alcoholic. He didn't even know where she lived.
Former co-workers said Purdy complained he had no friends, no social life. He told them he would just work, go back to a small motel room, sleep, and come back to work. But a man who lived next door to Purdy in one of those motel rooms paints a different picture.
He was in and out all night long, all day long, real skittish, not too friendly.
Doing drugs?
Yeah, I'm sure he was. Nobody could stay up all night and all day and not be doing drugs.
I mean, I was in shock all day yesterday. I didn't feel like talking. I still don't feel like talking. It was a sad thing,
I think something happened at that school or in that area, and he went back. He couldn't handle it any longer. He kept it inside and hadn't talked to anyone. I honestly believe it.
6th grade portables. I didn't see his face. It seems like he had sunglasses on, but he was in a stance like you see soldiers, I mean, the type of military stance with a gun, policeman stance with a gun right in front of him. And it was just total popping. I mean, I could see rocks flying.
West Side Middle School shooting. 13-year-old Mitchell Johnson and 11-year-old Andrew Golden killed a teacher and 4 students and wounded 10 others as West Side Middle School emptied during a fire alarm intentionally set off by Golden. Both shooters were arrested when they attempted to flee the scene. They were later sentenced to confinement until their 21st birthdays. Mitchell Johnson and Andrew Golden were both students at West Side Middle School. The pair were not close friends. However, they rode the bus together. 3 months before the incident, a student reported to a school counselor that Golden had stated he intended to shoot some people at the school.
Make threats that, quote, he had a lot of killing to do.
He was like, whoever didn't like him or whoever broke up with him, whoever he thought was a snob, he was going to shoot him, like he was going to bring a gun the next day and shoot him.
He was always talking about he was going to do it, and I never thought he would.
He always talked about he was going to do what?
He was going to come and shoot people and bring a knife to school and stuff. I never thought he'd do it.
When Golden was called to the counselor, he stated that he had a nightmare in which he followed through and then was killed, scaring him off the plan. Near the end of the school day, on March 23, 1998, the day before the massacre, Johnson talked to a schoolmate, Jennifer, warning her not to come to school the next day, as Johnson heard that something bad was going to happen. The day before the massacre, Golden told friends he had, quote, a lot of killing to do, unquote, and suggested to them that they would know the next day whether they were destined to live or die. On the night before the shooting, Golden assisted Johnson in loading his mother's Dodge Caravan with camping supplies, snack foods, and 9 weapons. The following morning, the boys drove in a van to Westside Middle School, arriving late after deliberately missing their bus. As they arrived, Golden pulled the fire alarm just after 12:30 p.m. during the beginning of 5th period, while Johnson took the weapons to the woods outside of the school. Golden then ran back to the woods where Johnson had taken the weapons. When children and teachers filed out of the school, 2 boys opened fire. During the incident, many became confused, initially with reports of shouting of, quote, it's all fake, unquote, as friends of wounded tried to evacuate their friends, and teacher Shannon Wright used her body to protect a wounded student. They killed 4 female students and 1 teacher, and wounded 10 others. Golden and Johnson attempted to run back to the van and escape, but were later caught by the police.
Shot at Westside Middle School. 911, where's your emergency? This is Westside Middle School. We have several children now. We need more than 1 ambulance. And we've got all the ambulance. Police too. We've got all the ambulance. Got shots fired. Okay, they're still being fired. Where are they coming from? I don't know, but it looks like they're coming from the...
Due to their age, they were tried as juveniles and were found guilty of 5 counts of murder. In August 1998, both boys were sentenced to confinement until they reached the age of 21, which is the maximum sentence available under Arkansas law. Andrew Golden died on July 27, 2019, after a Chevrolet Tahoe departed his lane, crashing head-on into Golden's Honda CR-V. Thurston High School shooting. After killing his parents at home, 15-year-old Kip Kinkle drove to Thurston High School, where he killed 2 students and wounded 25 others. After pleading guilty, he was sentenced to 111 years of prison. On May 20, 1998, 15-year-old Kinkle was suspended pending an expulsion hearing from Thurston High School in Springfield, Oregon, for being in possession of a loaded, stolen gun. Kinkle was released from police custody and driven home by his father. At home that afternoon, Kinkle was told by his father that he would be sent to military school if he did not improve his behavior. According to Kinkle's taped confession, at about 3 p.m., his father was seated at the kitchen counter drinking coffee. He then went to the kitchen and shot his father, once in the back of the head, then dragged his body into the bathroom and covered it with a sheet. Kinkle further stated that his mother arrived home at about 6:30 p.m. and that he met her in the garage, told her he loved her, then shot her twice in the back of the head, 3 times in the face, and once in the heart. He then dragged her body across the floor and covered it with a sheet. When police arrived at the house, they found opera music from the soundtrack playing loudly with the CD player set to continuous play.
The first open door we come to was in front of the residence on the main floor. It's best described as eerie. The music's coming from somewhere on the right of the room. There's a fireplace on the left of the room. There's a smell of wood smoke.
In a note Kinkel left on a coffee table in the living room, he described his motive for killing his parents thus, quote, "I just got 2 felonies on my record. My parents can't take that. It would destroy them. The embarrassment would be too much for them. They couldn't live with themselves," unquote. But as the note continues, he attempts to describe his mental state. Quote, "My head just doesn't work right. God damn these voices inside my head. I have to kill people. I don't know why. I have no other choice," unquote.
The hallway has a narrow flight of stairs that goes down. And we go down in there. And there's evidence on the floor. There's a considerable amount of blood on the floor. And on the basement floor, on the concrete, we find Faith Kinkel. She's also deceased and covered by a sheet.
Tell me what happens when you get home.
I had no other choice. I couldn't.
You were feeling really guilty.
Yeah.
So was your dad, did he hit you or anything like that?
No.
Okay. Was he yelling or out of control or?
Yes, I couldn't let me. I had no other choice. God. I had no other choice to use tomatoes.
He's mad at you because you got caught at school with a gun, right?
Right.
Okay.
And he's all his friends and everything knew about it.
So he was feeling ashamed and embarrassed because you did something wrong. Is that right? Okay.
I didn't want to. I love my dad, that's why.
You love him, so that's why you had to kill him?
Oh my God. My parents were good people. I didn't know what to do because, oh my God, my mom was coming home and she knew what I did. Oh my God.
So your mom comes home around 6, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Where are you at?
I was waiting for her.
Okay.
I just want to die.
I know.
Oh
God. So, you told me that your mom gets out of the Explorer and starts up the stairs from the garage or basement, is that right?
Yes.
Do you say anything to her?
Yes. I told her I loved her.
And then you
Yes. God damn, these voices in front of my head!
All right, all right. Settle down. Yep. Yep. Settle down. Settle down. It's all right. It's all right. Just settle down, okay? All right, just settle down.
I had no other choice.
Okay.
I love my mom. I just want to die. I don't know what else to do.
You didn't know what else to do? Why did you go to school and start shooting people?
I had to. I had no other choice. I couldn't do anything else. My head is dying. I had to. I had to.
Kinko's parents enrolled him in anger management and had him evaluated by psychologists. Shortly before being murdered, Kinko's father confided to a friend that he was terrified and had run out of options to help his son. His doctors later said that Kinko had told them of hearing voices in his head from the age of 12. He eventually suffered from hallucinations and paranoid delusions, including the belief that the government had implanted a computer chip in his brain. Kinko described 3 voices. Voice A, he commanded Kinko to commit violent acts. Voice B, who repeated insulting and depressive statements at the expense of Kinko. And Voice C, who constantly echoed what Voice A and B said. Kinko claimed that he felt punished by God for being subjected to these voices, a total of 50 rounds, 37 of which struck students and killed 2. And the subsequent attack at Thurston High School ran out of ammunition, and he began to reload. 99. Wounded student Jacob Riker tackled him, assisted by several other students, guilty to murder and attempted murder, foregoing the possibility of being acquitted by reason of insanity. Riker again, as well as another student. He yelled at the students, quote, "Just kill me," unquote. The students restrained Kinko until the police arrived and arrested him. In custody, Kinko retrieved a knife that was secured on his leg and attacked a police officer, begging to be fatally shot. The officer subdued him with pepper spray. Kinko later said that he wanted to trick the officer into shooting him, and that he wanted to die by suicide after killing his parents, but could not bring himself to do so. His teachers considered him immature and lacking physical and emotional development. Based on the recommendation of his teachers, Kinko's parents had him repeat first grade. In the repeat, he was diagnosed with dyslexia, which became worse, and he was placed in extensive special education classes by the beginning of the 2nd grade. Kinko had an interest in firearms and explosives from an early age. His father initially discouraged this, but later enrolled him at a gun safety course, buying him a .22 caliber long rifle and eventually a 9mm Glock handgun at the age of 15. Classmates described Kinko as strange and morbid. Others characterized him as psychotic or schizoid. He constantly talked about committing acts of violence, telling friends that he wanted to join the U.S. Army after graduation to find out what it was like to kill someone. When asked about a family trip to Disneyland, he commented that he wanted to, quote, "punch Mickey Mouse in the nose," unquote. He once gave a how-to speech in bomb making to his speech class and set off stink bombs in the lockers of classmates. Columbine High School Massacre. 18-year-old Eric Harris and 17-year-old Dylan Klebold, students at Columbine High School, killed 12 students and 1 teacher. They injured 21 additional people, and 3 more were injured while attempting to escape the school. The pair committed suicide in the library after a brief gunfight with police at the end of the massacre. In 1996, 15-year-old Eric Harris created a private website on AOL. On the site, Harris began a blog, which included jokes and his thoughts on his family, friends, and school. Harris ended a blog post detailing murderous fantasies with, quote, "All I want to do is kill and injure as many of you as I can, especially a few people, like Brooks Brown," unquote. After Brown's parents viewed the site, they contacted the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. When investigator Michael Guerrera assessed the website, he discovered numerous violent threats directed against the students and teachers of Columbine High School. Guerrero wrote a draft affidavit requesting a search warrant of the Harris household. The affidavit also mentioned the discovery of an exploded pipe bomb in February 1998 and a suspicion of Harris being involved in the unsolved case. The affidavit was never submitted to a judge and therefore went ignored.
That thing ain't coming out.
On January 30, 1998, Harris and Klebold were arrested for breaking into a van parked near Littleton and stealing tools and computer equipment. They would subsequently attend a joint court hearing where they pled guilty to the felony theft. The judge sentenced them to a juvenile diversion program. As a result, both delinquents attended mandatory classes such as anger management and talked with diversion officers. They both were eventually released from diversion several weeks early because of positive actions in the program and put on probation.
Do not mess with that friggin' kid! If you do, I'll rip off your goddamn head and shove it so far up your friggin' ass, you'll be coughing up dandruff for 4 friggin' months!
Go ahead.
Look, I don't care what you say. If you ever touch him again, I will frickin' kill you. I'm gonna pull out a goddamn shotgun and blow your damn head off. Do you understand, you little worthless piece of crap?
Nearly a year before the massacre, Klebold wrote a message in Harris's 1998 yearbook. Quote, "Killing enemies, blowing up stuff, killing cops. My wrath for January's incident would be godlike. Not to mention our revenge in the Commons," unquote. The Commons was another term for the school cafeteria. Harris and Klebold kept journals. In the journals, the pair would eventually document their arsenal and plan of attack. The journal shows a long period of methodical preparation for the massacre. Harris even wrote on his computer about escaping to a foreign country after the attack, or hijacking an aircraft at Denver International Airport and crashing it into New York City. Harris and Klebold also used their schoolwork to foreshadow the massacre. They both displayed themes of violence in their creative writing projects. Harris wrote a paper on school shootings and a poem from the perspective of a bullet. Klebold wrote a short story about a man killing students, which worried his teacher so much that she alerted his parents. Harris and Klebold were both enrolled in video production classes and kept 5 videotapes that were recorded with school video equipment.
I'll pay anything. Alright. It's $20 a day in school. You know we can't have weapons on school grounds. That's fine. I'll get him off the property. Alright. We'll protect you on school then. Take away any bullies that are picking on you, whatever. And off school grounds, we can relocate this person. That'd be $1,000. Thank you so much.
"30 minutes before the attack, they made a final video saying goodbye and apologizing to their friends and families.
No, I don't fucking think so. If you don't fucking leave that alone, I'm gonna get off and shove it so far up your ass that you're gonna friggin' freak.
30 minutes before the attack, they made a final video saying goodbye and apologizing to their friends and families. In the early morning hours before the massacre, Harris left a micro cassette labeled, quote, Nixon, unquote, on the kitchen table. On it, Harris said, quote, "It is less than 9 hours now," unquote. He went on to say, quote, "People will die because of me," unquote. And, quote, "It will be a day that will be remembered forever," unquote. According to their journals and videos, the pair hoped that after detonating their homemade explosives in the cafeteria at the busiest lunch hour, killing hundreds of students, they would shoot, stab, and toss bombs at survivors fleeing from the cafeteria. Then, bombs set in the boys' cars in the parking lot would detonate, killing the remaining students as well as any officer vehicles, ambulances, fire trucks, or reporters who had come to the school. The two murdered 12 students and 1 teacher. 10 students were killed in the school library, where the pair subsequently committed suicide. 21 additional people were injured with gunshots, and gunfire was also exchanged with the police. Another 3 students were injured trying to escape the school. At the time, it was the deadliest school shooting in the United States history. In addition to the shootings, the attack involved several homemade bombs. 2 of these were placed in the cafeteria, powerful enough to kill or seriously injure all people within the area, although they failed to detonate.
There is a student here with a gun, and the school is in a panic, and I'm in the library. I've got students down under the table, kids. Heads under the table. I do not know who the student is. Okay. I saw a student outside. I wasn't holding out here, God. He turned the gun straight at us and shot, and my God, the window went out.
The cars in the parking lots were made into bombs, which also failed to detonate. And at another location away from the school, 2 bombs were set up as diversions, only one of which partially detonated. Harrison Klebold also wished to become infamous and, quote, "kickstart a revolution," unquote. As Sarah said in a homemade video, they hoped the massacre would exceed the carnage at the Oklahoma City bombing 4 years prior. Red Lake shootings. 16-year-old student Jeffrey Wise killed his grandfather and grandfather's companion at their home, where he had been living at the Red Lake Indian Reservation. He drove to Red Lake Senior High School armed with his grandfather's police weapons. Wise killed 5 students, 1 teacher, and 1 security guard, wounding 7 others, before committing suicide following a gunfight with police officers. Jeff Weiss expressed frustration about living in Red Lake and felt his life was beyond his control. During these years, he got close to his grandfather, Darrell Lucier Sr., who gave him a bedroom of his own. Lucier Sr. lived with his companion, Michelle Sagana. Weiss was said to have a good relationship with his grandfather. By the time of his mother and stepfather's divorce in May 2004, Weiss attempted suicide soon after, and again in June of 2004. At that time, his aunts and the Red Lake Medical Center arranged for Weiss to be taken to a hospital for psychiatric treatment, where he stayed for 3 days. The teen was prescribed Prozac as an antidepressant to be continued as treatment together with counseling. His doctor had increased his dosage a week before the shooting to 60 milligrams a day of Prozac. A relative of Weiss's paternal grandmother said she and other family members thought Jeff had never gotten over his father's suicide in 1997. In addition, his mother's car accident in 1999 had left her brain damaged and in a nursing home, which meant that Jeff had effectively lost both parents by the age of 10. When his mother's ex-husband refused to take custody of him, he felt like he didn't belong. The day of the shootings, Weiss retrieved a pistol from his bedroom and fatally shot his grandfather as he was sleeping. He shot him 2 times in the head and 10 times in the chest. According to Weiss's friends, the teenager may have had a gun for as long as a year. He took Lucier's 2 police-issued weapons, a gun belt, and a bulletproof vest. He then fatally shot Sagana, his grandfather's girlfriend, 2 times in the head as she carried laundry up the stairs. Weiss drove his grandfather's squad car to Red Lake Senior High School, arriving at around 2:45 p.m. As he entered the school through the main entrance, he encountered 2 unarmed security guards manning a metal detector. Weiss shot and killed security guard Derek Brunn, while the other security guard escaped without injury. Weiss proceeded into the main corridor of the school. The police had arrived quickly and engaged him in gunfire. FBI Special Agent Paul McCobb said the shootout lasted for about 4 minutes. After being hit in the abdomen and right arm by police gunfire, Weiss retreated to a vacant classroom. He leaned against a wall, put the shotgun barrel to his chin, and fired, killing himself. The shootings lasted 9 minutes. Weiss fired a total of 59 shots during the shooting spree. Virginia Tech shooting. 23-year-old student Seung Hoo Cho, armed with 2 pistols, killed 32 students and faculty members at Virginia Tech and wounded another 17 students and faculty members in 2 separate attacks before committing suicide. The first attack was on the 2nd floor of West Ambler Johnston Hall, where he shot a young girl and another student that came to help. He then changed his clothes and made multiple videos.
I could have left. I could have fled. But no, I will no longer run. If not for me, for my children, for my brothers and sisters that you I did it for them.
He then took several pictures of himself with hammers, large knives, and guns. He then chained the doors of Norris Hall shut and shot and killed 30 more students and staff. He also shot 17 more students and staff, wounding them. 6 more students were also wounded from non-gunshot injuries. The incident is the third deadliest shooting by a lone gunman in modern U.S. history and the deadliest shooting in modern U.S. history. Cho had previously been diagnosed with severe anxiety disorder. During much of his middle school and high school years, he received therapy and special education support. In 2005, Cho was accused of stalking 2 female students. After an investigation, a Virginia special justice declared Cho mentally ill and ordered him to attend treatment. However, because he was not institutionalized, he was still allowed to purchase guns. The Virginia Tech Review Panel's August 2007 report devoted more than 20 pages to Cho's troubled history. At 3 years of age, Cho was described as shy, frail, and wary of physical contact. In 8th grade, Cho was diagnosed with severe depression as well as selective mutism, an anxiety disorder that inhibited him from speaking in certain situations and or to specific people.
But you can get a dollar out of me. No Cadillac, no pearl you can see. That's IMP. Now Shorty in the she in the club. She dancing for dollar. She got her thing for Gucci in the French in the Prada. The BCGB.
Cho's family sought therapy for him, and he received help periodically throughout middle school and high school. The report detailed numerous incidents of aberrant behavior beginning in Cho's junior year of college that illustrated his deteriorating mental condition. Several former professors of Cho reported that his writing, as well as his classroom behavior, was disturbing, and he was encouraged to seek counseling. He was also investigated by the university for stalking and harassing 2 female students. In 2005, Cho had been declared mentally ill by a Virginia special justice and ordered to seek outpatient treatment. In the ensuing investigation, police found a suicide note in Cho's dorm room that included comments about, quote, rich kids, debauchery, and deceitful charlatans, unquote. On April 18, 2007, NBC News received a package from Cho, timestamped between the first and second shooting episodes. It contained an 1,800-word manifesto, photos, and 27 digitally recorded videos in which Cho likened himself to Jesus Christ and expressed his hatred of the wealthy.
Thanks to you, I die like Jesus Christ to inspire generations of the weak and the defenseless people. Do you know what it feels like to be spit on your face and have trash shoved down your throat? Do you know what it feels like to dig your own grave? Do you know what it feels like to have your throat slashed from ear to ear? Do you know what it feels like to be torched alive? Do you know what it feels like to be humiliated and be impaled upon on a cross and left to bleed to death for your amusement? You have never felt a single ounce of pain your whole life, yet you want to inject as much misery in our lives as you can, just because you can. You had everything you wanted. Your Mercedes wasn't enough, you brats. Your golden necklaces weren't enough, you snobs. Your trust fund wasn't enough. Your vodka and cognac weren't enough. All your debaucheries weren't enough. Those weren't enough to fulfill your hedonistic needs. You had everything. You just loved crucifying me. You loved inducing cancer in my head, terrorizing my heart, and raping my soul all this time. When the time came, I did it. I had to.
Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting. The Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting occurred December 14, 2012, in Newtown, Connecticut, when 20-year-old Adam Lanza shot and killed 26 people, including 20 children between 6 and 7 years old, and 6 adult staff members. Before driving to the school, he shot and killed his mother at their Newtown home. As first responders arrived to the school, Lanza committed suicide by shooting himself in the head. The incident remained the deadliest mass shooting at either a primary or secondary school in U.S. history, the second deadliest U.S. school shooting overall, and the fourth deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history. Lanza attended Sandy Hook Elementary School for 4.5 years. He began at Newtown Middle School in 2004, but according to his mother, was, quote, racked by anxiety, unquote. She told friends that her son started getting upset at middle school because of frequent classroom changes during the day. The movement and noise was too stimulating and made him anxious. At one point, his anxiety was so intense that she took him to the emergency room at Danbury Hospital. In April 2005, she moved him to a new school, St. Rose of Lima, where he lasted only 8 weeks. Once at elementary school, he was diagnosed with a sensory integration disorder. His anxiety affected his ability to attend school, and in 8th grade, he was placed on homebound status. This is for children who are too disabled, even with supports and accommodations, to attend school.
Issues with school. She eventually wound up homeschooling him because she battled with the school district. In what capacity, I'm not 100% certain. If it was behavior, if it was learning disabilities, I really don't know, but he was a very, very bright boy. He was smart.
When he was 13, Lanza was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome by a psychiatrist, Paul Fox. When he was 14, his parents took him to Yale University's Child Studies Center, where he was also diagnosed with OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. He frequently washed his hands and changed his socks 20 times a day, to the point where his mother did 3 loads of laundry a day. He also sometimes went through a box of tissues in a day because he could not touch a doorknob with his bare hand. In a 2013 interview, Peter Lanza said he suspected his son might have also suffered from undiagnosed schizophrenia, in addition to his other conditions. Lanza said that family members might have missed signs of the onset of schizophrenia and psychotic behavior during his son's adolescence because they mistakenly attributed his odd behavior and increasing isolation to Asperger's syndrome. Investigators found Lanza was fascinated with mass shootings, such as the Columbine High School massacre, the Virginia Tech shooting, and the Northern Illinois University 2008 shooting. Among the clippings found in his room, there was a story from the New York Times about a man who shot at school children in 1891. His computer contained 2 videos of gunshot suicides, movies that showed school shootings, and 2 pictures of Lanza pointing guns at his own head. This only came to light after Lanza died because he never permitted others to access his bedroom, including his mother. Lanza had also taped over the windows with black plastic garbage bags to block out sunlight. He had cut off contact with both his father and brother in the 2 years before the shooting, and at one point communicated with his mother, who lived in the same house, only by email. According to a report by the Office of the Child Advocate in Connecticut in November 2014, he was also living in almost total isolation in his room, spending most of his time on the internet playing World of Warcraft and other video games. The report stated that he descended into a world where his only communication with the outside world was with members of a cyber community, a quote, small community of individuals that shared his dark and obsessive interest in mass murder, unquote. In the weeks before the killings, Lanza's mother was considering moving him to another town. She planned to purchase a recreational vehicle for him to stay in so that potential purchasers could see the house without disturbing him. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School shooting. A 19-year-old former student, Nicholas Cruz, whose behavior had led to his expulsion, began shooting students and staff members with a rifle at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School after activating a fire alarm. 17 people were killed and 17 others were injured.
Holy shit. Oh my god! Oh my god!
The suspected shooter blended in with the crowd of fleeing students and was arrested in a residential area of neighboring Coral Springs after walking away from the school. He was later charged with murder and attempted murder. Cruz had sat down at a McDonald's, then went to a nearby Subway. Nicholas Cruz was born September 24, 1998, in Margate, Florida, and was adopted at birth by Linda and Roger Cruz. Both his adopted parents died, Roger at age 67 in 2004, and Linda at age 68 in November 2017, leaving Cruz orphaned 3 months before the shooting. At the time of the shooting, he was enrolled in a GED program and employed at a local dollar store. Cruz had behavioral issues since middle school. He was transferred between schools 6 times in 3 years in an effort to deal with these problems. In 2014, he was transferred to a school for children with emotional or learning disabilities. There were reports that he made threats against other students. He returned to Stoneman Douglas High School 2 years later, but was transferred in 2017 for disciplinary reasons. The school administration had circulated an email to teachers warning that Cruz had made threats against other students. The school banned him from wearing a backpack on campus.
Hello, my name is Nick, and I'm going to be the next school shooter of 2018. My goal is at least 20 people with an AR-15 and a couple tracer rounds. I think I can get done. Location is Stoneman Douglas in Parkland, Florida. It's going to be a big event. And when you see me on the news, you'll all know who I am. You're all going to die.
Psychiatrists recommended an involuntary admission to Cruz to a residential treatment facility starting in 2013. The Florida Department of Children and Families investigated him September 2016 for Snapchat posts in which he cut both his arms and said he planned to buy a gun. At this time, a school resource officer suggested he undergo an involuntary psychiatric examination under the provisions of the Baker Act. 2 guidance counselors agreed, but a mental institution did not. State investigators reported he had depression, autism, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. In their assessment, they concluded he was, quote, at low risk of harming himself or others, unquote. He had previously received mental health treatment, but had not received treatment in the year leading up to the shooting. Broward County Sheriff Scott Israel described Cruz's online profile and accounts as, quote, very, very disturbing, unquote. They contained pictures and posts of him with a variety of weapons, including long knives, a shotgun, a pistol, and a BB gun. Police said that he held extremist views. Social media accounts that were thought to be linked to him contained anti-black and anti-Muslim slurs. YouTube comments linked to him include, quote, "I wanna die fighting, killing shit ton of people," unquote. Threats against police officers and, quote, Antifa, unquote, and intent to mimic University of Texas Tower shooting. In February 2017, Cruz legally purchased an AR-15 style semi-automatic rifle from a Coral Springs gun store. Cruz passed a background check. A year later, he used this weapon to commit the mass shooting at his former school.
Today is the day that it all begins. The day of my massacre shall begin. All the kids in school will run in fear and hide. From the wrath of my power, they will know who I am. I am nothing, I am no one. My life is nothing and meaningless. Everything that I hold dear, I let go beyond your half. Every day I see the world ending another day. I live a lone life, live in seclusion and solitude. I hate everyone and everything. With the power of my AR, you will all know who I am. I had enough of being told what to do and when to do. I had enough of telling me that I'm an idiot and a dumbass. But in real life, you're all the dumbass. You're all stupid and brainwashed by these political government programs. You will all see, you will all know who my name is. My love for you, Angie, will never go away. I hope to see you in the afterlife. When one day or another, you will end and we'll all die. Alright, so here's the plan. I'm gonna go take an Uber in the afternoon before 2:40. From there, I'll go into the school campus, walk up the stairs, unload my bag.
Items recovered by police at the scene included gun magazines with swastikas carved in them. One student reported that Cruz had drawn a swastika and the word, quote, "I hate N-words," unquote, on his backpack. CNN reported that Cruz was in a private Instagram group chat where he expressed racist, homophobic, anti-Semitic, and anti-immigrant views. He said he wanted to kill gay people and Mexicans and talked about keeping black people in chains. He said he hated black people, quote, simply because they were black, unquote, and Jewish people because he believed, quote, they wanted to destroy the world, unquote. He also referred to white women who engage in interracial relationships as traitors. CNN used a public records request to obtain a sheriff's office log, which showed that from 2008 to 2017, at least 45 calls were made in reference to Cruz, his brother, or the family home. The calls included an anonymous tip on February 5, 2016, that Cruz had threatened to shoot up the school, and a tip on November 30, 2017, that he might be a, quote, school shooter in the making, unquote, and that he collected knives and guns. On September 23, 2016, a peer counselor notified the school resource officer of a suicide attempt and intent to buy a gun. The school indicated it would do a threat assessment. In September 2016, 3 people, a sheriff's deputy who worked as a resource officer at Stoneman Douglas, and 2 of the school's counselors, stated that Cruz should be committed for mental evaluation. On September 24, 2017, a person with the username quote, Nicholas Cruz, posted a comment to a YouTube video that read, quote, I'm going to be a professional school shooter, unquote. The person who uploaded the video to YouTube reported the comment to the FBI. According to Agent Robert Lasky, the agency conducted database reviews but was unable to track down the individual who made the threatening comment. On January 5, 2018, more than a month before the shooting, the FBI received a tip on its public access line from a person who was close to Cruz. On February 16, 2 days after the shooting, the agency released a statement that detailed this information. According to the statement, quote, the caller provided information about Cruz's gun ownership, desire to kill people, erratic behavior, and disturbing social media posts, and the potential of him conducting a school shooting, unquote. After conducting an investigation, the FBI said the tip line did not follow protocol when the information was not forwarded to the Miami field office, where investigative steps would have been taken. A year before the shooting, Cruz had sought help from education specialists as his grades at Stoneman Douglas were declining. He was an 18-year-old junior and met with specialists with his mother. On February 14, 2018, Cruz, a 19-year-old former student at the school, opened fire with a semi-automatic rifle at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, killing 17 people. He was arrested without incident about an hour later in nearby Coral Springs.
What's going on? What's going on today, bro?
The demons, man.
Demons?
Voices.
Yeah, no problem.
Voices.
Voices and demons?
Where's the voices? What am I? What happened?
Shut up. Just be quiet, man.
He confessed to being the perpetrator, and he was charged with 17 counts of premeditated murder and 17 counts of attempted murder.
What are the voices about?
It's another voice, the evil side.
Okay. How long has that voice been going on?
Years.
Okay. When did it start, you think? When your mom passed?
It started worse when my mom passed.
Yeah. Well, what does it tell you to do?
Burn, kill, destroy.
Okay. Burn, kill, destroy what?
Anything.
The voice didn't tell you to take Uber, right?
Yes, it did.
It did?
Yes.
The voice said take Uber.
The voice isn't me.
You're the voice.
In here.
Okay, it's in your head.
Yes.
What is it? A male voice or a female voice?
Male.
Male. Can you tell how old the voice is?
My age.
Okay. You have a good voice too, or just a bad voice? Is there a voice inside of you that says do good things? No. Can't say it's a voice, it's you. It's all you. The voice is you as well. The voice didn't force you to do anything, right?
No, the voice did. It's two voices. There's one half that's the good and then the bad.
Yeah.